Hi, this is Catherine. This is Taking Tea with Catherine. This is Darjeeling from Harney & Sons. That's all the details that they have about this particular tea. Usually it's a tea you can go into major detail about because of various reasons. But it's short and sweet. Well, not that sweet, but very good. And I thought that would be a great way to start a kind of probably longish video, because I've been a little behind in making my videos lately. And so I thought I'd do a 2-in-1 here, which is a Friday Reads, in which I will talk about books that I'm currently reading, hope to be reading further over the weekend, hopefully finishing one or two, we'll see. And also I'm going to do hauls. I cannot believe I've hauled more books, and there's a lot to talk about here. So the Friday Reads bit might be a little bit shorter. We'll see. Starting with the book that I'm not sure if I'm going to finish, which is Bookish Broads by Lauren Marino. I have read other books this year about female writers and women writers, whatever you want to call it. And I always find that interesting. And some of it is quite informative, but there's one sentence in here that made me mistrust the entire book. So it talks about the Brontes and talks about Emily Bronte died of tuberculosis, right? And then it says 2 weeks after Emily's death, Anne too was diagnosed with tuberculosis and died. Now, it's true that she was diagnosed shortly after Emily was, and it's true that she died, but not right there. The way it's written, it sounds like 2 weeks later she died. Right? Doesn't it sound like that? Now, I know that that's a little bit nitpicky, but there were other things. I'm not going to search for every single line that made me question it. But there's something about this book that makes me say, should I keep going? I mean, I've made enough progress that I feel like I should, but part of me says, time's wasting. So, I don't know. What would you do? I don't know. So, the next book is actually really good, but it comes with some warnings, as in spoiler warnings, and as in I had a pretty bad experience that has nothing to do with the writer or the book itself. But this is Agatha Christie, The Woman and Her Mysteries by Gillian Gill. I think it's a rather good biography. It doesn't go all into every single detail of her life ever, but that's okay, because I really just wanted an overview. And there's a little bit of I don't know if you call it literary criticism or whatever you call it, talking about certain of her books, analyzing them. Already got into her first book, but which I've already read, Mysterious Ferret Styles, and the circumstances around it, and it really goes into. But she warns you in the beginning. She names a few of Agatha Christie's works, and talks about these are the ones I'm going to talk about. So in other words, you're going to hear spoilers. Just be aware if you don't want that, and that's fine. I am fine with it if I know it's coming. But she also talks about plot points in other books that aren't Agatha Christie's books. For reasons, and they're good reasons, but some of these books I haven't read yet and don't want to know these things, and that frustrates me a little bit. I'm still going to keep going, but I had an incident. I got out of work earlier this week, and I decided I was going to do this whole thing. I'm going to get a cheap coffee, which is I usually do when I know I'm going to have a little time off, and I was going to take a nice walk. It was cold out. I was going to go to Central Park, etc. with my coffee. I thought this was a whole nice plan. So I took a bus from where I was at, and I thought that would be the most convenient thing to do. Normally it is. So I was reading this book, and just as I was turning a page, it's not going to happen now because I keep looking in this book, I saw a roach. And it could have come from the bus, it could have come from where I was coming from, it could have come from anywhere. I have occasional in my apartment water bugs, which are horrible, and flies, mosquitoes. I have a mosquito bite somehow on my hand. I don't have, that I know of, a roach problem. We get an exterminator in very often, so I don't know where it came from. I'm not trying to say, oh yeah, it's definitely not from my home, but that's not the reason why I freaked out. I freaked out because I freaked out. No one wants this to happen. And I went like that, and it jumped, and it kind of landed near a woman sitting across from me, and I felt terrible about that because I wouldn't want someone to do that to me. I know this is a whole dramatic story and kind of a gross one, but then I just couldn't pick up from this book since then. It's been a couple days, but I want to get back to it and just stop having this memory over and over again. The ironic thing was, because of Doctor Who reasons, I guess, I had this bookmark in here. And look what it said. I think that was like a perfect bookmark now for the situation. But anyway, that's where I am with that book. Isn't that crazy? I know. It's just, I don't like any bugs, to be honest. I know some people are like, oh, but this one's interesting. Yes, dragonflies are interesting. Butterflies are interesting. Ladybugs are interesting. Ants are interesting, as long as they're not in my house. They're interesting. a few other ones, but I think that's as articulate as I can get out of that situation. So let's move on. Calming down. This is a book that is both a cozy book and kind of sad in parts. I heard this book mentioned recently and then said, I gotta get it out of the library. And which is Martha's Vineyard, Isle of Dreams by Susan Branch. I read her book, I think it's probably in here. What's it called? Sorry about that. I forgot the name. Oh, it's not saying it in here. It's a book about England. Okay, wait. No, it's not saying it in here. Goodness sakes. It is a wonderful book. Hold on. Okay. I looked it up. A Fine Romance, which was a book about her trip to England. Taking a boat all the way over there and back, like a cruise kind of, and her experiences. And I loved it for obvious Catherine reasons. And I love the thought of Martha's Vineyard. I really do. So this is a story of a while ago, the early 80s. John Belushi just died. And Susan Branch just reached the end of her marriage and was quite sad about it. She lived in California and she was done. So she went over to visit for a while Martha's Vineyard and ends up settling there. So this is just her story of her life in Martha's Vineyard, which is cozy, but there are just some sad bits here and there. If you don't like reading about deaths of cats, I know it's a bit of a spoiler, but just prepare yourself because I know I have to be in the mood for that. Here's another book I started. I love this author. I like his history books and his fiction quite often. This is Innovation by Peter Ackroyd. It is his latest and probably last of the story of England because it covers up into the end of the 20th century. And I mean, how much are you going to write about the past 20 or so years? And I'm still in the early years, like around leading up into 1914, the World War I situation. And it's pretty good. I don't think it's holding me quite as much as I thought it would yet, but I still want to keep going in it because it is history that I am interested in. And I'm going to get into another book that I'm currently reading too, but it's buried here. So, for reasons. Anyway, so on to the haul. There's other books that I would like to be reading, but I probably won't get to them this weekend. Oh my goodness, so many books. So little time, even with a long weekend. How is this possible? But anyway, so that whole story, that whole in the bus situation, I got off much earlier than I expected to get off of the bus. I bolted from that bus and I didn't know what to do. I was kind of walking around having not a panic attack, but a skin crawling moment. This is what happens when I see roaches. I get my skin crawls, and even now just thinking about it, I'm starting to get that, so let's not. And here I'm thinking, oh, I wanted to get my cheap coffee, but now I have to get decaf. But I have to because even though there's a little bit of traces of caffeine in there, otherwise I am going to have a problem. But I really, really just wanted a coffee experience. So wandering around this area near a hospital called Lenox Hill, and it's also near the current temporary location for the Frick Museum, and I was tempted to go in, but I didn't. So I was wandering around and I found a place called Handcrafted Coffee, and I got a latte, unsweetened, which made me feel very proud of myself and kind of snotty, and it was really quick. The service was very quick and efficient, and for what you get nowadays, it was actually kind of affordable, kind of. So I had a good time in that situation. So not a complete disaster, and it was kind of cold, so it was fun to walk around with my coffee. What I did was, this is actually leading up to something for real. I ended up walking to the Webster Library, which is all the way on the east side of Manhattan. I know a lot of you will probably have to consult a map with all this yammering I'm doing about Manhattan. But it's on York Avenue and 6th Street. I could be wrong. I could be off by a street there. But that is quite east, which is a walk. I love a walk, by the way. But on the way back, it was a little harder because I had books now. Because it's not just a library. It is the Book Cellar, which is a basement bunch of books, a book sale, a library book sale. And so they're kind of affordable. And they had a special. It was like 5 for 4. So if you buy 5 books, the 5th one is free, the lowest price one. So I'll start with the lowest price one, which would have been $2, which ended up being free. And it's an interesting anecdote here, sort of. Well, a discovery anyway. And because I looked through every book at this point, can you imagine? Because at this point, my coffee was over, wonderful experience, but I was still anxious. So I'm looking through every book, like making sure not to find any little friends in there. And I found this book, Caleb Williams by William Godwin. Yes, that William Godwin, the father of Mary Shelley, and the husband of Mary Wollstonecraft. Last year around this time, I finished Romantic Outlaws, which was an amazing book. And I know that he had written books, but I don't think I ever read anything of his. I may have had something of his in one of the Norton anthologies. But anyway, so I thought, oh, that's cool. It's only $2. Ended up being free. It was written around a time where I could read it for Jane Austen July. And it's, I don't know, it's, let's see, it's with a plot like a suspense thriller, in which Caleb tracks down his master squire Falkland's guilty secret only to be pursued himself as a potential betrayer. Caleb Williams was both acclaimed and denounced when it first appeared in 1794. So that is definitely around when Jane Austen was writing her early works, so that's pretty cool. But here's what I loved. When I was looking through the book, I found a couple of pictures. And I'm sure none of you watching will recognize these people. This looks like it probably was over 20 years ago, but I'm not really good at investigating that. Just trying to figure out, but they're having a party. They're on the couch. This guy's doing a little kind of a duck face. But these are prints, you know? I mean, how often do people do prints? I don't know. And then these guys are all sitting around. I'm trying to figure out if these are the same guys or not. I think it's always the same one guy, but I'm not sure. So it's a little bit of mystery to me. I thought about pointing out to the people working there, but I'm like, I don't know. I just thought it would be an interesting, fun little mystery. Who doesn't look through their books before they donate them? Anyway. And then I found a Trollope, an Anthony Trollope, because it could always be Francis Trollope, right? And he knew he was right, which I saw the film. It was a little bit messed up in a lot of situations, but I did kind of want to read it, so I have it now. And I found this book called The North, and Almost Everything in It by Paul Morley, which is just about kind of like the cultural identity of coming from the north of England, which for some reason I find interesting. I know I have one strand of ancestry from the north of England. I don't know that that's interesting to me or not, but as someone who is a big Beatles fan, I guess, someone who just finished reading with Brontes, who are from the north, and Downton Abbey, which is based in Yorkshire also. I mean, there is a difference between northern England and southern England. So north and south, anyone? So that could be interesting. And I've been wanting to read more Sir Walter Scott, Michael Scarn. I've been wanting to read more of Walter Scott's books. I read Ivanhoe a number of years ago and thought it was pretty good and would like to read Waverley, and I just hadn't found a copy. And I try not to be a Folio or Easton Press, one of these kind of collectors, but I saw this in this library sale, and I thought, I mean, it has a cover, and look at this. Waverley by Walter Scott. I mean, that's kind of cool, right? And it's sort of a historical fiction, which I like, and also a possible Jane Austen July thing. And look, it's got pictures and everything, artwork, and it's pretty, but it's not like so dainty that you're afraid to handle it. So I thought, okay, this could be quite nice. And here's what I call currently reading and a haul, because I had it out. I had been reading the Barnes & Noble version, and I wanted to read the Landmark Herodotus, but I didn't want to pay full price for it. So I found this for $5 in the library sale, and I thought, well, okay, I'm gonna keep going with Herodotus. I know, because I joined Jennifer Brooks' reading group for this. I know I'm not gonna finish it in November. I just know it maybe in December, but I still think it's good to have this copy. And it is something like you feel like you could take notes in. The Barnes & Noble one is good, but not as good for that. So I'm pretty excited about that. I wouldn't mind making comparisons too with the two of them. So feeling very scholarly. So that is the haul from the Book Cellar. I'm about to have an avalanche, so you can tell that I have a lot more books to show. Here are some recent Bookoff books. Along the lines of Herodotus, I found this book by Ruzard Kapuscinski. I have no idea, but I made an effort. Travels with Herodotus, so I thought that could be kind of cool to read possibly soon. But it doesn't just go to, I think, the ancient lands, because it says, he was hoping to go abroad after he finished university in Poland, and then said he was sent to India, the first stop on a decades-long tour of the world that took him from Iran to El Salvador, from Angola to Armenia, and anyway, so I thought that would be quite a lot of travel reading, but also talking a lot about Herodotus. Thought, okay, hopefully I can read this in the next month or so, right? And then I got some more Edith Wharton. Yes, I know I haven't been reading Edith Wharton that much recently, but I've been kind of circling her for a while. And in that book that I'm not sure if I'm going to finish about the bookish broads, she is mentioned, and it whetted my appetite for more Edith Wharton. So, oh, and guess what? There's pictures in this one too. There's pictures in this one too. I am losing my mind because I didn't see that before. Wait, I have to backtrack because I forgot to also share this from in the north. Someone wrote something to them, and I feel kind of sad because it's not that long ago, and yet now they got rid of it. But anyway, I guess I wasn't as careful looking through this, and now I'm seeing more pictures. Oh my goodness, what is with this lately? I'm finding all kinds of photographs. I don't know who these people are. It's somebody's kid, right? And this might be the same kid with another kid. But, you know, I might just have to put this on more social media or something and see, because I know people do that sort of thing. They put things on and say, help me find them, or whatever. I may have to do that, because that's just kind of sad, isn't it? There are more pictures? Wait, there's a kind of a perfumed, oh no. Bookmark? Okay, it doesn't smell like perfume. Good, because I have issues. I was wondering why I wasn't reacting. Okay. Right, isn't that weird? Okay. I can't believe I just found that now. Just goes to show how I was not being as careful in Bookoff as I was in the other shop. This is also a historical guide to Edith Wharton, edited by Carol J. Singley. So I kind of thought that was nice. My fingernails. I love books about books, as you probably can tell by a lot of books that I read, and more on that another time. Speaking of books about books, this is Holmes and Watson by June Thompson, which I think just gets into a lot of Sherlock Holmes works. I mean, Arthur Conan Doyle's works about Watson. So a little analyzing here. There's two books here that are books that I read already. I'll show you the first one here. And this is a very important book to me. Like a super important book to me. Not because it's the biggest book or the most important book in life, or like, but it got me back into reading more historical fiction. Or I should say got me into reading regular historical fiction. I probably had read a few in the past, but this got me into a habit of it. And then reading more about biographies on historical figures and history itself, which changed my reading. And this was just over 20 years ago. 21 years ago that I read this book. And I glanced in it really quickly, and it mentions, okay, well, let me show you the book first. The Captive of Kensington Palace by Jean Plady. So this is about the young Queen Victoria, before she was queen. So, and her life in Kensington Palace, which was not always easy, because there was a whole system in place between her mother and this guy, Conroy, who was just not a favorite of hers. But what I noticed when I looked just briefly in the first few pages is it mentions her sister Theodora. And here I was watching the show, the Victoria show, which I don't know why they're not making it again. But anyway, and when they were doing this, they brought in her sister, like in the third season, and she just was not my favorite character. I don't think she was supposed to be anybody's favorite character whatsoever. But I was like surprised. Like, who is this Fedora? How come I didn't know about her? How come I don't remember hearing about her? I must have read about her before because I read biographies on Queen Victoria. How come I didn't? I totally read about her, but it's been so long. I guess it just completely just goes to show sometimes you need to keep reading about the same subject because you will forget things. Okay, the changing a subject totally. This is a book with a lot of lovely pictures. It's not a lot of writing, but it is some writing, but it's just, to me, it's the cutest book ever. And I thought it was timely because this person's going to be 100 soon. And I thought, wow, and this is an animal lover. And just everybody's favorite golden girl, Betty and Friends, My Life at the Zoo by Betty White. So I thought, okay, this is fun. This is a fun, very highly illustrated, well, not illustrated, photographs galore in this book. Look at this. Look at this. Isn't that so cute? Oh my goodness. I'm not really into primates that much, but oh my goodness. Anyway, I do also have a Golden Girls bookmark, so maybe I'll use that when the time comes. Now this is a book that I looked for and put like on hold online somewhere for the longest time, but I just never ended up buying it. And then I saw it for $1 in Bookoff and said, well, it's time. And that is Novel Destinations. Literary landmarks from Jane Austen's Bath to Ernest Hemingway's Key West. So I thought that would be fun. Another bookish book, but also a travel guide. So until I actually get to travel, I can read about it. I do intend to if I go back to the UK. I don't know. There's hopes of next year. Don't want to make any guarantees because everything's been so uncertain lately. But my friend who would go with me wants to go to Bath. She's never been. I only went once for a day trip, and so I wouldn't mind going again. So that might put me back in the mood if I wasn't already. This is a book. Okay, here's the other book that I've read already, so it's going to be a reread for sure. But I picked it up because I'd seen Kate Howe, who I like to join in a lot of her read-alongs because she tends to pick books that I want to read often, not all the time, but often. So she mentioned, and I know she mentioned this earlier in the year, I think, but Winter Solstice by Rosamund Pilcher. And I thought, well, I have read this already. It's been ages since I read it. I can't remember when I read it. It's got to be well over 15 years. That's all I know. And because I know it was a pretty new book when I read it, and it's got to be a 20-year-old book. So, yes, a long time. And I said to myself, well, I'm going to make myself a little deal. If I go to Bookoff and find it for $1, I am going to pick it up and I'm going to read it in December. So, or I should say reread it, you know? So now I have to make plans to read this book because I found it for $1. I remember really loving this book though, so hopefully I will feel the same this next time. This book is a book that's going to make me want to read the Pickwick Papers. So I think it's a mystery, and it's called Death and Mr. Pickwick by Stephen Jarvis. So, my goodness, look at the pictures in here. Sorry, I'm cutting my face off, but, you know, the book's much more interesting. So it says, let me see, I'm not sure. Oh, the fate of Robert Seymour, Mr. Pickwick's creator, is a different story, one untold before now. So maybe it's not a mystery. I'm not really sure what this is, but yeah. So I know it's a book about books. It's a novel. Yeah, I know almost nothing about this, and that's good because I like that sometimes. I heard about this book, but I just never got to it. And I sound completely clueless right now, but that's because that's what happens when you just pick books for $1 off the shelves. But this and The Unlikely Escape of Uriah Heep, these are a couple of like Charles Dickens related novels that I really want to read soon. now that I'm getting back into Charles Dickens again. But I gotta finish a few books. I gotta finish Dombey and Son, and then I really do need to read Pickwick Papers so I can know what I'm talking about. Anyway, and then I found this book, which I've heard so much about this series, wanted to read it, and that is Jessica Fellowes' The Mitford Murders. So I think it is the Mitford sisters helping to investigate murders, which, yes, it is. And so I'm kind of excited about that, even though I know I wasn't that much like in love when I read The Pursuit of Love by Nancy Mitford. I still think that the whole Mitford experience is an interesting one, and I love mysteries, so I finally got the first book in the series, so maybe I can kick it off at some point. Last but not least, Juliet Barker wrote the book on the Brontes, which I will discuss not today, but shortly, soon, and I realized that she's got amazing writing skills, and I thought I want to read more of what she wrote, hopefully. I mean, I have some criticisms about the book too. I gave it, I said I wasn't going to talk about it, but I gave it about 4 stars, or probably more 4.5, just because there were bits that weren't as interesting to me. Still, all in all, that was a really good book. So I think anything she writes could be promising. And I heard that she wrote this book, and I thought, well, this is a part of history that I like, even though I'm not big into military history and battles, but still, this is a time period that is quite something. And this is Agincourt, which is Henry V and the battle that made England. So this was a pretty big deal. I also want to read Henry V by William Shakespeare. This is a very decisive battle that could have really done a number on France if, well, I mean, kind of did, but it did make England more of a force to be reckoned with. And if Henry V hadn't, spoiler alert, this is history, so it's not a spoiler, but if he hadn't died young, I think, and if his son hadn't become king at such a young age with all the regency type of situation, which is what happens when there's a young king, it is possible that France could have continued to have issues. But anyway, so it's a very important thing. It's a very important battle, and people talk about it all the time. And I wouldn't mind reading more about it because I do love history. So, blah, blah, blah. That's enough for now. So many books. So my question is, are you reading any of these books yourself? Have you read any of these books? Of the currently reading books, are there any that you enjoyed? If any of you have read Bookish Broads, should I keep going with it? Any of these haul books that I haven't read yet, are there any that are ones you would make a priority? Please comment below. And if you like talking about tons of different types of books, history and mysteries mostly, it seems, in biographies, I guess, a little bit of nature, a little bit of Golden Girls, please subscribe. So that is all for today. This is Catherine at Taking Tea with Catherine. Have a lovely tea and book-filled day.